Rain poured over the dueling arena as Weiss faced down a black-haired swordsman before a roaring crowd. Confident, Weiss mocked him as a mere commoner, certain the outcome was already decided in his favor. The duel ended fast. Weiss stood over his fallen opponent in the rain. Victorious, his sword still raised, he was known across the school as the villainous noble, feared and hated by everyone around him. In another world, a young man cleared the game versus Weiss on his screen. The story explained that Weiss, defeated by the protagonist Alan, lost everything, was discarded as a shield by the Demon King, and died. Moments later, the player himself collapsed at his desk and died. He woke inside an unfamiliar mansion, disoriented, standing in a dark hallway. A maid knelt before him. Gripping a riding crop in his own hand, her head bowed in fear. The maid trembled on the floor. He stared at her, stunned, unsure of what was happening. Confused, he wondered where he was and whose body this was. Moments earlier, he had only been playing a game, yet now a woman knelt bound in front of him. Looking at her face, he thought she was strikingly beautiful. She asked what was wrong, calling him Weiss-sama. Something about her felt familiar. Realization hit him. He was Weiss Fansent, the villainous noble from the school game Noblesse Oblige. He recalled the game clearly, one he had cleared many times, where Weiss stood as the obstacle to protagonist Alan. Memories surfaced of Weiss's cruelty, his fall as a servant to the Demon King, his defeat by Alan, and his death used as a shield. He learned the maid was Lilith Scarlet, the girl Weiss had made a habit of tormenting. Determined to make amends, he moved to untie her, then hesitated, worried the sudden change would look suspicious. He decided to stop mistreating her, though leaving her bound felt wrong. Noticing a mark on her neck, he raised his hands and cast Heal. The spell worked. He recalled reading about this hidden healing magic in a strategy guide. Flustered, he insisted he only wanted to practice magic, not help her specifically. Lilith thanked him through tears, surprised he could use healing magic at all. He apologized for everything he had done to her and promised to change. Lilith only stared back, puzzled by the sudden shift in him. At dinner, the Fansent family butler Zevis Alden served Weiss a plate, bracing himself out of habit. Normally, the young master would call the food terrible and throw the plate to the floor. This time, Weiss simply said the seasoning was perfect. Zevis stood frozen, stunned by the change in his young master. Overwhelmed with emotion, Zevis declared himself deeply honored. The maids beside him wept, calling Weiss wonderful, even though it had only been a simple meal. Watching them cry over something so small, Weiss wondered if they now believed he had truly grown up. Recalling how badly the old Weiss had treated everyone, he resolved not to make the household's girls sad again. Starting with the riding crop in his room, he decided to get rid of it first. He carried the crop outside and left it among the rubble, vowing to change even further from who he used to be. With the entrance exam for the academy 2 years away, Weiss reminded himself that nobles were required to attend a proper school by 15. He recalled how his reputation had crumbled after losing to the protagonist in the combat test. Reasoning that the future could shift if he avoided that same defeat, he resolved to have no choice but to prepare seriously. Standing amid the wreckage, he swore that no matter how much strength it took, he would avoid the path leading to ruin. Practicing alone with his sword, he was startled by a stern voice calling his name from behind. An S-rank adventurer named Milk Avitas stood before him, arms crossed, questioning whether he was even taking his training seriously. She told him to rest properly if he wanted to be taken seriously, warning that being called a loser right after enrolling would be far worse. Weiss explained he had asked an incredible person to mentor him, using his family's connections to secure her lessons. Milk Avitas was originally a late-game character, considered the strongest swordsman in the capital. She warned him to forget he was a noble and train him without mercy, revealing herself to be startlingly sadistic once training began. Lilith brought him a cloth marked with a word, delivered at his request. The character read diligence, meaning he would do his best to the point of dying, reflecting the game's brutal difficulty as a title only cleared through repetition. Determined to waste no time, Weiss admitted he had never properly trained his body, even in his previous life, knowing failure could mean expulsion or death. Building basic fitness was essential before learning swordsmanship or magic. Though the process left him utterly exhausted, each day began with sword forms, brutal muscle training, and endless running to build his stamina. From morning till night, Weiss trained without stopping, spinning through the wheel drill over and over, collapsing to his knees before forcing himself back up again. Zevis prepared a menu packed with protein, following the young master's own instructions. Weiss explained that injuries could be healed with recovery magic, making diet just as important for building his body 2 weeks into training. He apologized to Zevis for being a burden despite his busy schedule. Zivas assured him that with his own support, some overwork could be managed. 3 weeks in, each day felt endless and hellish. Yet before Weiss knew it, the sun was already setting. Having grown used to the physical training, Weiss decided it was time to call a magic teacher. Exhausted from Milk Sensei's strict lessons, he hoped this new teacher would at least be kind. Zivas led him inside, showing him in. The figure that appeared was Milk Avitas herself, the same S-rank adventurer. Weiss could only groan in disbelief. Milk explained she was not only a master of swordsmanship but also of magic, questioning why he seemed bothered by seeing the same face again. Zivas, embarrassed, admitted he'd been asked to find a kind teacher, but Milk was known as a genius magic swordsman, able to use 2 of the 4 great magic attributes. Milk assured them she would teach gently, though Weiss immediately grew suspicious of her tone. Out on the cliffs, she pushed him to channel more magic power, warning him not to close his eyes as forces surged around him. She ordered him to keep going for 2 more hours, prompting Weiss to shout that this was tougher than the sword training and question where her kindness had gone. Milk explained that mana could only grow through consistent training and told him to repeat the exercise daily until he collapsed. Weiss protested, but training continued regardless. From that day forward, alongside magic training, practical sparring with wooden swords began as well. Milk struck him down effortlessly, pointing out he was still full of openings. Lilith rushed to heal him, promising to support him with recovery magic so he could keep pushing forward. Weiss found it strange that someone as lazy as his former self could now work this hard without hesitation. He recalled how in his past life he had given up easily, running from anything difficult, living as little more than a hollow shell. He questioned what truly separated his past self from who he was now. Unsure how he had become someone capable of such discipline, 2 months into training, Milk reached out and gently patted his head by the waterfall. She praised his improvement, explaining that a pat was her reward whenever he reached a goal, finally showing him what gentle teaching meant. Weiss muttered that the ratio of carrot to stick felt off, only for Milk to deny it, smiling as she called him wrong. Lilith arrived with lunch in hand, cheerful as ever. While Milk noted he had probably received plenty of carrot already, calling herself merely the one holding the stick. Lilith reminded him not to forget the carrot's role. Holding out the meal meant to support him through the hardship. Reflecting quietly, Weiss admitted everything he had achieved was thanks to everyone around him. He thought of Zivas helping with meals, Lilith always by his side, and Milk Sensei toughening his heart for growth, admitting he wouldn't have come this far without their cooperation. He remembered his old self and his past life, both consumed by selfishness, never scolded, never supported, needing a mix of love both sweet and harsh. He vowed he would no longer live only for himself. His new goal became protecting those who helped him, refusing to be ruined or to die. Determined, he swore to avoid the path of destruction for himself and for everyone beside him, screaming through exhaustion. He pushed on as Milk declared the next goal was 4 hours, telling him to keep going until he collapsed. Weiss walked through League Belt Town with Cynthia and Lilith beside him, the 2 girls drawing attention from every corner of the street. The town was known in the game as the first place the protagonist would arrive at, a rundown district called League Belt Town. Weiss recalled Milk's earlier warning about cheating during training. Then Cynthia mentioned Milk had assigned him a task, right as 2 thugs shouted threats nearby. Weiss realized his practical test would take place in this city, 3 months after his training began, and he wondered who his opponent would be. Cynthia teased him to fight with confidence, while Weiss grew nervous, sensing Milk had already chosen a dangerous opponent for him. A group of thugs spotted the trio, eyeing Lilith, and openly commenting on her appearance. Cynthia warned the men that Weiss could kill them without effort. While the thugs mocked him for walking around with a beauty, Weiss recognized the men as regulars of this crime-ridden town and vowed to protect Lilith no matter what. Regardless of Milk's plans, Cynthia told Lilith to ignore them, though Weiss noticed a chilling killing intent radiating from her. Lilith agreed cheerfully, masking whatever intent Weiss had sensed moments earlier as they continued down the street. The group reached the Adventurers Guild, where 3 hardened men stood watching them enter. One of the men stepped forward and challenged Weiss to step outside. Weiss identified them as the Boudin brothers, criminals guilty of rape, robbery, kidnapping, murder, and slave trading. Cynthia explained the brothers had evaded justice through bribery, though the corrupt officials had since been arrested, leaving the brothers as fitting opponents for Weiss's first real battle. Milk reminded Weiss that despite his lack of real combat experience, his determination was strong enough to proceed. Milk added that facing real combat was a step he would have to take eventually. She warned him that inexperienced fighters often died, and that she might not be able to protect him next time. Encouraged by Cynthia's support, Weiss stepped forward, telling himself to face his first real battle with confidence. Moments later, chaos broke out as Weiss searched for Milk, who had vanished along with Lilith, leaving him tricked and alone with the criminals, with no way to retreat. Weiss steadied his nerves, setting his goal to sever one of the brothers' arms. Weiss studied the three brothers, noting they carried real skill despite their punk appearance, and wondered if a 3-on-1 fight was even winnable without killing them. He realized a plan had to come before anything else, since being dragged into an alley meant the fight would begin regardless of his wishes. He remembered Milk's advice to simply follow what she had taught him, trusting it would carry him through. Meanwhile, Milk admitted to Cynthia that lying about abandoning Weiss was necessary to push him into action, and Cynthia called her cruel for it. Milk quietly promised she would step in if things turned dangerous, though Cynthia pointed out this barely counted as practice anymore. Inside the guild, the brothers recognized Weiss from earlier and turned their attention toward him and Lilith with unsettling interest. They revealed themselves as the thieves controlling the district, boasting they were simply short on girls for the night as captured victims sat bound nearby. Weiss struck first, drawing blood before the brothers could react. One brother screamed in pain as Weiss moved decisively against the group. He recalled Milk's core teaching that the first unexpected strike outweighed any other attack in battle. A single broken neck could end a martial artist, just as one unguarded hit could end a mage before their barrier formed. Milk's lesson echoed in his mind: move before the opponent does. Weiss admitted to himself that he had always postponed making real decisions, even as blades clashed around him. He resolved that hesitation would no longer define him, vowing to make decisions in seconds instead of waiting for a better tomorrow. Declaring he would abandon his old lazy self, Weiss pushed forward with full force. The strategy worked, all three brothers falling, because he had moved before they could ready their combat stance. Cynthia and Lilith gave their verdict, awarding him 70 points for the effort. Cynthia added that cutting off an arm inside the guild itself would have earned full marks, calling it the truly proactive approach. Lilith apologized for vanishing earlier, admitting it had been frightening, while Weiss simply sighed in response, noticing blood on Lilith's clothes. Weiss questioned her, but she brushed it off as nothing more than his imagination. The captured women sat bound and trembling near the counter, while the notorious Boudin brothers and their men lay defeated across the blood-soaked floor of the hideout. News spread that more than 20 members of the band of thieves had been arrested, though remarkably none of the beaten bandits had died, only left unable to speak. Reports confirmed the arrest came through the cooperation of Weiss Fansent, with his name and image now circulating alongside the captured Boudin brothers in the official records. Cynthia smiled to herself at the mention of Weiss, while back at the Fansent estate, a letter of thanks and a cash reward arrived, leaving Weiss puzzled over what exactly this band of thieves incident had even involved. Weiss had trained for a year and a half, enduring severe conditions and unceasing exercises. His presence currently pulsed with strength. The days of falling from mana fatigue or stamina loss had once defined his fight, but now he remained strong, his power breaking logs with ease. Fatigue no longer held him back. He felt mana plainly and detected enemies through walls, even while sitting. At breakfast, the boy calmly verified his practice was progressing smoothly. Control of all 4 elemental magics: earth, wind, water, and fire was the basis of Weiss's practice. To achieve mix, the boy practiced controlling each element equally, astonishing those who observed. Despite former victories, Weiss saw Milk unceasing methods harsher than any opponent he had met. According to his attendant, this intensity stemmed from Weiss's exceptional mystic aptitude. In reality, wielding multiple elements defied natural bounds imposed on ordinary magicians. Even Milk, a S-rank adventurer, could merely command 2 elements at most. In contrast, Weiss displayed control over all 4, a phenomenon rarely seen. His former laziness had concealed this talent, yet unceasing work uncovered it. Approval came with interest. The steward recognized Weiss's transformation with genuine approval. However, beyond the approval, Weiss shook, haunted by lessons of merciless practice. Weiss knelt in suffering, scolded once again for enduring merciless practice with a timber sword. Doubt arose. His teacher felt he had been secretly honing his sorcery solo. Under the moonlight, the girl requested a demonstration, leaving him with no choice but to comply. The boy revealed not just the 4 base elements but light and grim sorcery, astonishing the witnesses. With a sure grin, Weiss admitted it was still unfinished, his real power yet to come. Weiss admitted his command over the sorcery was still lacking, though the growth was evident. With both mentors observing, he drove ahead, resolved to perfect his original blend of light and grim. A powerful presence expanded from his hands, the fruit of 18 months of tireless work. As the night heavens hovered, the manor settled silently, unaware of the sorcery just unleashed. Within, nobles gathered and chatted, oblivious to the awakening power just outdoors their walls. At the aristocrat gathering, Weiss arrived drowsy, his fatigue from the previous night still remaining. Despite the fatigue, he had successfully completed his original sorcery, a blend of light and grim. This new technique, Dark Heal, merged restoration and cursed sorcery into one powerful magic. Enemies were harmed while allies within range received continuous restoration through this double-element sorcery. Though triumphant, the mana cost overcome Weiss, leaving him fallen on the floor in silence. Recognized his need for more mana practice, while the servant cheerfully gave a bizarre solution: alcohol. Without holding, she dashed away at full speed, leaving Weiss mildly astonished. Her movements came notice, swift and sudden like an assassin weaving through an onlookers. Weiss started to wonder if she might be one of the concealed soldiers rumored to guard the Vincent household. When the girl turned with concentrated grace, Weiss's suspicions merely deepened. Weiss saw the beautiful girl before him, Cynthia, daughter of Countess Violetta. He quietly watched her gleaming hair and red gaze, captivated by her undeniable beauty. With flair and courage, she revealed herself as Cynthia Violetta, the primary heroine of the tidal realm. Her teasing tone taken him away defense, comparing his look to a goblin's demise. Lessons flooded back. Weiss had formerly been the most hated character by everyone, including her. Among all figures within the original story, Cynthia held the deepest hatred toward Weiss. The girl was also the very person responsible for leaving his former self riddled with injuries. Despite her grin, her figure felt unnerving, appearing only due to ties with the Vincent household. Attending this social event currently seemed like a mistake the boy should have avoided altogether. Panic thoughts raced. Nothing had happened yet, but anxiety tightened its hold before school even started. Lessons of Weiss's previous self rose, leaving him confused and disoriented as Cynthia neared. A shadow hovered from beyond, threatening Cynthia, forcing Weiss to guard her on reflex. Instead of thanks, she recalled him of his former existence's unforgivable transgressions, mistreatment of strength, and shameful behavior. Loathing held her gaze, each word stung hard as she unleashed her remaining hatred. Desperate to improve destiny, Weiss bowed and apologized genuinely, without excuse. Confessing publicly, the boy admitted his actions were disgraceful for any aristocrat and bowed badly. Though remorse held each word, he doubted any forgiveness would come. Even Cynthia arrived surprised. Seeing him lower his hair in front of people was unlikely. Some of her anger seemed to soften, though uncertainty lingered in her gaze. While retreat felt like the only choice, a subtle hope stirred, just maybe. This wasn't the finish. They remained on opposite ends, light and darkness, destined never to meet. Resigned to retreat, the boy trusted any approach would only lead to disgrace or destruction. Yet her palm extended out, halting him. For a moment, silence cleared between them. From close, a call announced his title, drawing notice to the unlikely pair, breaking all expectations. Cynthia softly asked him to dance. Music held the corridor as Cynthia remained beside Weiss until abrupt risk made her shout urgently. The afternoon was quiet as the two sat under the gazebo, birds chirping gently in the background. Cynthia wasn't someone who often arrived without reason. That night, everything changed when the girl unexpectedly took his limb and asked him to dance. At the formal ball, their meeting felt like destiny, though the boy had no idea why she neared him. The girl smiled knowingly, telling him she had noticed his transformation before the boy understood it himself. Cynthia had apparently heard whispers about his severe practice regimen before entering the school. While dancing, she brought up a former event he barely recalled, catching him away defense. Her mention of an attempted assault remaining him embarrassed, uncertain of how to respond or atone. In an abrupt motion, he pulled her close, their bodies raised together in a still embrace. Leaning in, she recalled him of feelings the boy had once confessed, but seemed to have ignored. As the applause rang, Cynthia recalled him the dance had already finished, catching him in a daze without message. She walked aside with a composure farewell, leaving him astonished and confused. Elsewhere, Weiss's father, Ejito Vincent, watched events with opaque gaze, his figure silently looming. Afterward, a letter from Ejito appeared, its contents both surprising and urgent. Panic hit as Weiss understood Cynthia was already at his home for an abrupt dinner. An additional letter from Weiss's father was discovered, stirring worry among the servants as they trained the manor. Time circled back to the subtle tea moment, now shaped by the disorder that had taken to it. Weiss's thoughts burned with anger, questioning his father's motives with rising irritation. Though thrilled to be close Cynthia, Weiss knew she was meant for someone else. Alan, the title's hero. Any deviation out of the story's path could erase Alan's destined part. Weiss panicked by the idea of diverging from the scenario, fearing he'd lose all narrative advice. Even something as basic as defeating Alan or stealing Cynthia's part could unravel the planned events. The boy attempted to remain emotionally neutral, convinced both affection and rejection could trigger disaster. however, recalled his former confession and asked whether it had been ignored altogether. Her candid remarks softened upon his apology, acknowledging its sincerity, despite how poorly it was formally delivered. Cynthia suggested she wouldn't reject his feelings, her remarks laced using a gentle, teasing tone. Embarrassed, Weiss reacted with panic, overcome by the abrupt shift in mood. He couldn't believe her gentle look, so different from the image he had of her aristocrat persona. Lessons of the original plot returned, where she landed for the hero far too swiftly. Knowing her loyalty when in love, Weiss resolved to suppress her feelings before things spiraled further. Compliments poured in unexpectedly, and his rising favorability became harder to dismiss. A loud reaction burst from him when the servant arrived, startling the composure mood. He cringed within, believing such an ungraceful sound might actually push Cynthia aside. Instead of cooling away, her affection intensified, muttering how adorable the boy looked. Outdoors, another cost hovered, something arranged by his father which no one had completely stated yet, an engagement announcement taken him away defense, though Cynthia calmly accepted the idea after their talk. Far out of the garden, murmurs about Weiss's personality grew among the men trailing beyond the scenes. With no delay, his father had arranged the engagement and fixed the cost himself. Mockery erupted as his father's group wondered aloud if Weiss had eventually saw happiness. At the mansion's entrance, preparations unfolded as easy banter continued beside an oddly placed tunnel dig. A furious shout broke through the breath as awareness of the engagement eventually hit him. What seemed like an easy gathering was actually a full-blown engagement arrangement orchestrated beyond his back. Arrangements alongside the Violetta household weren't political, they were simply made to cause him happiness. In the original story, his father barely arrived, leaving his character a complete mystery. Now the reality appeared: an overly doting man who spoiled his son without pause or edge. Seeing his father's cart loaded with sweets, the boy eventually realized what spoiled Weiss into becoming a villain. Lilith remained quietly, hands clenched, her look held with sorrow and pause. Teardrops spilled as she asked him to be happy with another, hiding her own feelings. Before the boy could respond, the girl darted away at incredible speed, leaving him speechless. From beyond, a teacher calmly announced his new practice, chasing after Lilith. Accusations flew as he was made to challenge the suffering Lilith carried after supporting him for so long. A stern command followed: return home with her, or features fatal as punishment. The boy dashed ahead, mind racing with lessons of how Lilith had always been beside him. Without her aid, the boy knew he would have stayed hopeless and minor. Desperately reaching out, the boy shouted her title. Realizing the girl was the reason he ever changed, no cost how strongly he drove ahead, he couldn't close the gap. Lilith only shouted for space. They raced through forest and river, her title echoing as the boy pleaded for a moment of her time. She eventually cried out, claiming it couldn't be helped, she was just a servant. The boy shouted back without pause, calling her someone irreplaceable. Desperation rose as the boy declared the engagement wasn't his choice to begin with. At the prestigious sorcery school, nobles are allowed to cause only one servant, and he had already chosen. The boy shouted his trust, declaring the boy would gain her along because she meant the most to him. The girl faltered, realizing his plans weren't out of duty but choice. With a leap, the girl challenged him to chase her forever if the boy really meant it. Though drained, he drove on, yelling his agreement with everything he had remaining. With a tender eyes, the girl swore to stand beside him not as a servant, but as his mistress. Just as feelings extended their peak, he passed, tumbling away the cliff's edge without message. They soared across the breath, embraced tightly as the landscape rushed under them. In his arms she pledged to stay devoted, keeping their relationship concealed from the realm. Whispers of forbidden love faded under the crash of water below, sealing their secret. After dropping into a secret relationship with Lilith, he still proceeded with the engagement to Cynthia, split between duty and sense. Elsewhere, the original hero trained in silence for the looming entrance exam. Cynthia asked the growth of mystic refinement, while her pupil fought to meet expectations. Lilith adjusted her sorcery under advice, her output fluctuating before she eventually saw a mix. The boy became engaged to Cynthia, yet privately shared affection with Lilith, now tangled in conflicting relationships. The boy observed them from a distance, overcome by how absurd it all became. Blaming his absent father, he trained a mental list of grievances, quietly cursing the disorder remaining in his wake. Practice intensity shifted as the teacher finished the basics and introduced real sparring to cause the stakes. Both Lilith and Cynthia responded assuredly when asked about prior practice, though their nervous expressions told another story. As things grew further entangled, both girls unexpectedly joined the same practice group. They had personally asked for advice from Milk, aiming to prepare for the challenging entrance trial future. While Cynthia already possessed exceptional ability, her drive to push further never waned. Though Lilith wasn't needed to gain the entrance exam, She insisted on entering to lend her aid. The hero understood neither Cynthia nor Lilith really had to practice. With the sword handed over, Cynthia was chosen as his first rival within the sparring session. Lilith supported him on while people warned him not to go simple on his fiancée. As they met each other quietly, the fight was already underway without one word spoken. Without message, Cynthia launched into the breath, catching everyone away defense with her abrupt motion. She hit with severe power, clashing weapons during breath and sending out a shockwave that astonished Weiss. Their teacher's call rang in his memory, reminding him that the first action always decides the battle. But Cynthia vanished in a moment, her speed disorienting him completely before the boy could respond. Weiss steadied himself, gaze wide with pressure, as the battlefield landed into heavy silence. He hit strongly, and Cynthia barely was able to cause her defense in time to block the strike. Her battle technique relied on ice sorcery, enhancing her speed and grace, like a person skater in motion. Gliding with accuracy, the girl planned to exploit his blind spots with swift, unpredictable strikes. But a mistimed action finished with a comical bonk, and Cynthia sprawled in loss. Weiss insisted it was simply a tap, though it had turned into a full-blown block. Cynthia, still embarrassed, fought with anger. This was the first time her attacks had been countered so easily. Lilith stepped in to heal her injuries with a basic magic, brushing away gratitude with easy care. Curious, Milk asked Weiss about how the boy was able to follow Cynthia's rapid movements with such ease. Without much rest, Weiss was suddenly told the boy'd be meeting Lilith next. To his visible surprise, the girl remained ready, smiling calmly as their spar was about to begin. He paused, believing it unthinkable to spar against someone like Lilith, who prepared merely as a servant. Lessons of her agile feats emerged instants that plainly defied any traditional servant part. A chill ran through him. Letting his defense down even for a reconsider felt like a fatal mistake. Reflex kicked in as projectiles rained from all sides. Lilith rushed, unrelenting in her accuracy. Their fight erupted with fierce pace, both refusing to back down. Perspiration poured down his features. Spotting Lilith's movements proved the boy wasn't simply lucky against Cynthia. Doubts emerged. In the original tale, the girl was a mere background character. Currently, she overcome him. Despite being new to sorcery, her ability with a blade and immense speed remaining him astonished. Carrying back would guarantee loss. The boy drove harder, resolved not to lose. A magic circle lit under his feet as Lilith closed in fast, precise, unstoppable. Powerful glow rose under Weiss as he invoked his unique sorcery, catching Lilith's notice during charge. The magic wasn't ordinary, it mended allies within the circle while cursing rivals who stepped within range. Realizing the risk, the girl instinctively attempted to escape, but the radius stretched too wide. He failed his sword to channel the magic completely, leaving himself completely open to attack, knowing retreat would mean sure loss. She dashed ahead, blade raised, aiming for a telling blow. Lilith's blow collided with an abrupt shield, her timber sword shattering on impact, leaving her astonished. He crouched with a composure grin, acknowledging her full power attack blocked effortlessly. The technique, formed from blending grim and light sorcery, formed an unbreakable defense absolute barrier. In tandem, his dark eye enhanced perception, allowing him to track her swift movements. Though slower physically, mystic synergy gave him a plain advantage so long as his mana suffered. Milk calls stung through the breath, urging Lilith to respond. All gaze were on her next action, but the magic's remaining effect overcome her. The girl stumbled, dizzy, incapable to maintain mix. Instants afterward, she fallen. Weiss rushed ahead, startled by her abrupt drop. Under the tree, Lilith recovered alongside the aid of a potion. The match was over her lost plane. Even Cynthia was shocked. No one anticipated Lilith to be beaten so swiftly by that magic. Weiss started to understand the nature of Dark Heal. A storm of debuffs flooded the area, slowing motion, draining mana and weakening both form and mind. With Lilith's low reserves, the magic drained her power fast, leaving her unconscious before the girl could adapt. What Weiss took from enemies, the boy added to himself, rising stronger with each stat stolen. Allies could share in those buffs too, making him even further risky. The more people remained with him, a heavy silence landed before Weiss's abrupt outburst shattered it. Mind-pounding, he eventually said the phrase he dreamed of uttering since his reincarnation into this realm, before he could process it. Cynthia stepped ahead with a dangerous eyes and issued a direct challenge. She requested a fight, claiming the boy was responsible for her rising excitement. Practice continued, with Cynthia launching Weiss straight into the floor as Lilith rushed to join in again. Time cleared swiftly with severe practice and unresolved pressure. Days blended into months without growth in their relationship. Eventually, they appeared at Noblesse Magic Academy, where everything would eventually be put to the trial. Noblesse Magic Academy trained to host its greatly awaited entrance exam. Pressure rose when a large candidate confronted a younger youth, misreading his look for ridicule. Before a strike could connect, a composure person stepped in. A sudden stare from the arrival stopped the aggressor in spot. Murmurs followed as approval grew. Weiss had appeared. His renown as a dreaded aristocrat unsettled everyone present, flanked by two stunning girls. His entrance stirred chatter. The older pupil stopped the moment he saw Weiss Fansent dropping to his ground. The youth asked for mercy. Weiss showed no interest in retaliation, sternly dismissing him without more notice. As the aggressor fled, Weiss reflected on his past. His renown yet lingered despite years since his reincarnation. Practice had overcome the last 2 years. Now, his attention was to slowly shift how people viewed him. Standing ahead of the school gates, Weiss carried a personal mission. A youth with a bright look stepped ahead, introducing himself as Alan. Despite Weiss's fearsome figure, Alan remained hopeful and supportive. After a brief break, Weiss extended out. A greeting followed, marking the start of an unlikely bond. Their moment was stung brief by the sound of a chime marking the exam's onset. Pressure returned. Alan turned at his companion's call. Haste returned to their moves as they rushed toward the trial. A girl with gentle gaze stepped ahead. Cheryl Elias, Alan's old companion, gave subtle gratitude for Weiss's aid. Something about the meeting remaining an odd sense in his heart. The memory of his pause lingered. The boy had stopped before reaching out to Alan's palm. Though Alan seemed kind, even easy contact brought an odd, disturbing weight Weiss couldn't understand. Resolved, he recalled himself of the objective. Alan wasn't an opponent, just the one person the boy had to exceed. During the academic trial, Weiss kept a composure attention. His plan was basic: stay civil but remote. Quickly after, they were announced for the battle exam. Weiss's mind stirred with a worry he couldn't dismiss. Completely dressed, he appeared with his 2 allies, carrying still resolve into the arena. Beyond him, Alan's call revealed drive. The boy wasn't just friendly, he wanted to defeat the rivals. He planned to lose not only Alan, but each one of them. Battle guidelines were stated plainly: success would go to those who made yield or push their rival out of the arena. The teacher promised the group he'd step in if things got risky. Several students grumbled about their snug clothes. Despite the unease, no one withdrew down. Cheers rang from the edges. Alan supported for Duke with easy courage. Elsewhere, Cynthia and Violetta watched the setup. For them, the exam already felt like the onset of something greater. Cynthia's grin suggested that severe realities entering the school was just the start. The school removed anyone who failed to keep standard, despite of rank. Many who failed out remaining beyond their clothes, unwilling to recall what they'd suffered. Still, Weiss knew the entrance exam wasn't the toughest stage. Even minor figures cleared it in the original story. As downpour started to drop, his title was announced. It was eventually his chance to move into the arena. Weiss observed from beyond, knowing the moment they had both trained for was close. They met one another in silence. The downpour landed between them, but their gaze held firm will. As the match arrangements started, other students were sent away. The arena held with subtle expectation. A shield covered the arena from the downpour. Calls rang as Alan supported Weiss to offer his hardest. Teacher marked the onset. Weapons raised, both stepped ahead as the practice duel started. Weiss rushed ahead with sudden power, immense Alan with a blow too fast to block. Alan used a restoration magic during drop. Sorcery rose under him as he prepared for another exchange. But suffering shot through his form. The strike had hit too hard. Murmurs rang from the onlookers. His blade dropped, anger clenching his hold. His strength yet felt uneven. A grim weight rose within him. Bewilderment turned to fear as the desire to break surged uncontrollably. Odd power rose about Weiss. The teacher felt something odd. Raised to the immense weight, Weiss fought with himself as grim feelings emerged. His hidden self rose, stunning everyone, including Alan. After the academy's entrance exams finished, the headmaster summoned 2 individuals: Zevis, a loyal steward, and Milk, a rank adventurer. A teacher reflected upon the surprising transformation of Weiss Fansent, formerly known for idleness. Weiss had shattered expectations, outperforming each candidate and breaking records across all exams, standing drenched yet triumphant. Headmaster Gills, curious and careful, asked the guardians who raised such a prodigy. He voiced worry over Weiss's risky potential, awaiting their reply with wary silence. Instructor Darius explained that although Weiss reached the highest scores in school record, another teacher recalled the group that Weiss had only tied for first spot with a remarkable girl from the previous year. Milk and Zevis downplayed their influence, claiming minimal involvement in Weiss's rise, merely basic aid and practice. Zevis added, almost casually that the boy supplied Weiss using a heavy dose of nutrients. Food rich in soy, dairy, and chicken formed the basis of Weiss's unknown growth. Darius exploded in anger. Incapable to believe Weiss had mastered not just the 4 basic elements, but even light and grim creation's sorcery. Milk responded with indifference, sipping casually from her mug as pressure rose about her. Fallen in her seat, the girl remaining everyone speechless, her drink apparently self-supplied. An alcoholic despite the disorder, the headmaster urged composure, noting Milk's behavior was nothing new. Elsewhere, Weiss knelt beside Alan, who lay wounded. The youth had narrowly survived. Darius, frustrated and drenched, blamed Weiss for Alan's close fatal, despite praising Alan's raw talent. Milk, calm, accused Darius of jealousy, hinting at a grudge from a former loss. As tensions rose, the headmaster requested silence. Zivas calmly assured them of Weiss's worthiness. The headmaster defended Weiss, noting the boy no longer misused strength. Something fundamental had shifted. Weiss currently embraced work over talent, striving earnestly to become a stronger, better man. They celebrated as their admission letters appeared, smiling at the onset of a new chapter. The school raising remained vast and imposing, marking the start of formal education. Instructor Chloe welcomed the new students, taking charge of the classroom and introducing the curriculum. Weiss watched the students silently, noting their reactions and the variety of expressions among them. The group settled in, ready to begin their studies at Noblesse Magic Academy. Weiss watched his classmates silently, assessing each pupil with a calculating eyes. Alan met him with will, unshaken despite the looming figure of his rival. During the exam, Alan was able to loss Weiss once, surprising everyone about them. Each rematch drove Alan to his bounds, and Weiss's feelings intensified the fight, nearly immense him. Despite Weiss winning decisively in the finish, Alan grew stronger with each meeting, proving his resilience. Anger held the classroom as Weiss understood the challenge had shown him what it really meant to be a hero. Abrupt flash startled the students. Chloe raised her palm, emitting a bright light that taken everyone's notice. Each pupil received 1,000 points, visibly signaled by the mystic display above Chloe's palm. These points represented a measure that would follow them throughout their school adventure until graduation. Among the students, Weiss observed silently as Chloe verified that he, based on trial results, a new total arrived 2,000 points, twice the standard award. Classmates murmured in surprise, shocked by the abrupt increase compared to the people. Questions held the space as students attempted to understand the significance of the points and whether they function like grades. Chloe remained composure, letting the students express their bewilderment before addressing the cost. Rather than explaining in remarks, she suggested the students would better understand the method through practice. Chloe instructed the students to grab timber blades in action to the practice grounds. The group assembled in formation, ready for the battle trial that would determine their growth and strictness. A message followed: any pupil whose points failed to 0 would feature immediate expulsion. Gaze scanned the field, pressure rising as Chloe trained to let them battle until someone's points vanished. Elsewhere, Milk reflected on the disorder remaining beyond whenever Weiss departed for the school. Milk trained to obtain a teaching license at Noblesse Magic Academy as grim clouds gathered above. Within the practice corridor, Weiss noticed a small group of students gathering close him. Calling himself Louis Meisent, the youth openly praised Weiss for his recent performance. Known for outstanding grades and high potential, Louis had formerly been seen as a model pupil. On the practice grounds, a stern lady requested a plain reply from him. Louis held an odd signaled object in his palm. Louis was made down on his ground while the last assessment was delivered. After the expulsion was declared, Louis remained on the floor while Weiss met the sight in silence. A moment afterward, Weiss understood Louis had been completely beaten by Alan. Afterward that day, Louis sat solo in the dining corridor with his food untouched. Weiss chose to avoid reckless actions and attention only on what was needed to prevent the story from changing more. A new problem arrived when the primary heroine became connected to him as his fiancée. Weiss felt the situation falling faster than anticipated, starting from the very first day. At the same time, something darker started rising within Weiss. Ever since meeting Alan, Weiss noticed his feelings twisting toward aggression, not merely toward Alan but toward everyone close. Although the boy wanted to respond calmly and earn trust slowly, his clenched palm showed the strain. The boy dreaded that giving in would make him hated like the villain within the original story. While sitting with an empty tray, Weiss felt the brutal desire return in his mind. A composure girl responded without terror, treating his grim temper like it was nothing. Odd, even after the food finished, Weiss stayed strained, expecting doubt or anger from the people about him. The girl recalled him that this was the Noblesse Magic Academy, where behavior and renown carried weight. The girl admitted she had been worried about him and trusted the boy was too kind. Lilith stated that living in their realm needed crushing enemies before they could blow back. In the dining corridor, she refused extra meals even as the servants gave more. Despite her strict logic, Lilith pledged to aid Weiss no cost what decision he made. When Lilith asked if the boy was yet hungry, Weiss declined again. As his fiancée, Lilith urged him to show further drive and push everyone else down. Weiss grateful Lilith and Cynthia for talking with him and helping composure his thoughts. Lilith suggested a basic coin toss if the boy really could not decide what to do next, carrying the coin. Weiss admitted he had no plain view of what the coming would cause. As the coin flipped, Weiss asked whether the boy should stop trying to command the story altogether. The cafeteria worker arrived and insisted Weiss finish the meals that had been trained with work. Observed it roll aside while the cafeteria worker stared in amazement beyond him. As it spun, Weiss noticed the details on both sides of the coin, showing a castle on one face and a dragon upon the other. The boy would battle his aggressive pushes and try to get along with Alan to avoid disaster. Rattling in spot as Weiss held his breathing and waited for the result. Alan arrived and calmly returned the failed coin to him, neared Weiss in the hallway and apologized for talking end. A close look showed Alan was excited because the boy wanted to meet Weiss again. Weiss admitted the boy also wanted another match, even if it was reckless. The decision came from both dignity and the weight raising within him. Carrying up the coin, Weiss accepted Alan's challenge and showed the boy felt the same way. Quickly after, the arena erupted as their battle started again in front of students and servants. The school's punishment grew swiftly, and another pupil was declared removed after falling from the disorder. In the practice grounds, a large man rushed ahead in panic and rage, shouting as he attacked. Weiss sent first beautiful him down in one solid motion before the man could recover. More students were removed one after another, each thrown away as their names were announced. By the finish, removed students littered the area in smashed positions, an astonished silence. Lilith and Cynthia counted the rivals Weiss had removed, pleased by how swiftly he finished obstacles. In the forest exercise, Weiss sent with purpose beside Alan and chose the boy would not hesitate anymore. During the clash, Weiss rushed straight into risk and overcome the opponent head-on. Afterward, Weiss sat solo, exhausted and close to his edge as the day count continued dropping. Far aside, a girl asked for aid while meeting her own countdown to expulsion. The match ends with Team Weiss declared victorious. Weiss stands calmly while beaten rivals remain scattered. A brutal clash unfolds during school practice. Weiss overwhelms another pupil with precise motion. After 1 month, many students quit. Weiss is revealed as the direct cause, having personally driven most aside. Practice schedules shift toward higher sorcery disciplines. Weiss selects ordering courses, drawing still notice from surrounding students. Evaluation results spot Weiss Fansent by the top in each category. Back within the classroom, a frustrated aristocrat confronts Weiss. Suspicious of how swiftly his ability has changed, Duke Billion, Cheryl's old companion, demands to know what kind of practice could produce such abnormal power. Where Weiss passed former Cheryl's sorcery threads without work and seized the flag immediately. Another memory follows, showing Weiss standing over Alan after defeating him in one telling action. With Weiss scoring 5,700 points and taking first spot by a wide margin. Alan lowers his hair in disappointment while people try to firm him. Weiss observes the situation silently, staying composed even as pressure rises about him. Old lessons understand why people once dreaded him, since he treated severe methods and caused resentment during former matches. Unlike before, Weiss keeps his feelings under command and refuses to respond unfairly. A strict message follows about the next real trial, increasing weight on the group as Weiss stays alert. But her uneasy gaze shows the girl is hiding strain under her composure posture. Her teacher cuts her away sternly, making it plain that excuses will not cost. Weiss remembers the original story where Carta became desperate after dropping beyond and her path finished after the next exam. Even though the previous match was fair, Carta's closest companion was removed because of the results. Carta walks aside from the school grounds in silence, leaving no trace beyond. The girl is neared by a pair of students who pry into her plans for the next exam and practice her lack of a partner. Their remarks hit strongly as they remind her that her closest companion was already removed. Weiss walks into the corridor and overhears the ridicule, catching Carta's scared reaction as the group looks strained. Moves ahead and offers to team up with Carta for the next exam. Carta hesitates and questions why someone like Weiss would choose her, saying they are not compatible and reminding him the boy is the top-ranked first year while the girl is close to expulsion. As they turn, Carta notices a remote person observing from the trees. Senses something is bad when Carta stiffens. Then a masked girl moves out with a heavy figure. Weiss stays relaxed and calmly questions whether Carta is worried about his fiancée. He explains that Cynthia only seeks to be the hardest within the school. Carta panics after sensing killing intent close, but the weight vanishes before she can respond. Weiss looks aside and tells her he is not trying to aid out of care or sympathy. Admits he cannot waste time since sorry for removed students, yet falling Carta would be a loss to him. As they reach open floor, Weiss calmly evaluates her flying sorcery. He praises her command and cautions that such ability is strongly to spot. Weiss explains the boy chose Carta as the most efficient partner for the next exam because of her unusual ability. A long-haired girl appears beyond a tree, confirming Carta's before terror was actual and not imagined. Weiss calmly praises Carta's sudden sensing ability, seeing she detected faint traces people would miss. The concealed girl introduces herself as Lilith, capable in assassination techniques. Lilith reveals the upcoming tag duel will be a joint exam for all 3 school years, leaving Carta as the target of other teams who want to break Weiss's plan. Carta freezes in panic as the girl realizes the exam will pit her against older, stronger students. Weiss ignores the noise and firmly chooses Carta as his partner, pushing practice to begin immediately due to limited time. On the open field, Carta accepts in surprise, and her severe nerves chance into teardrops as Weiss's special practice with her begins. While walking under the forest canopy, the pair discussed the complexities of flight sorcery. Courage lit up his features as he stated his growth, claiming the sorcery was eventually starting to make sense. Carta Vile, an expert in flying sorcery, gave a blunt reminder of his before defeat to remain airborne. They neared the school grounds, where she pointed out the boy wouldn't need the ability for the upcoming exam. Resolved to gain advantage of the unusual chance to improve, Weiss reflected on the value of sorcery. Sure, it could become a blade if treated wisely. Though unrelated to the exam, the boy asked for her aid, promising not to let her down and vowing to avoid expulsion. He wished their practice would persist even after the trial. Carta paused but smiled. Surprised by his dedication, the girl recognized his strongly work. With a gentle nod, she agreed to aid his actions moving ahead. Rumors painted Weiss as an idle aristocrat, yet his actions told a different story. His attention and figure spoke volumes. Carta admired his dedication, aspiring to match his power and curiosity. From a distance, another pupil quietly watched them, murmuring Weiss's title as if intrigued by his rise. Within, the headmaster reviewed Weiss's results, astonished by the power shown for someone so young. Faculty recognized his impact, noting how many students the boy had surpassed, even among talent. Among the many students, the one who remaining the toughest impression was Alan, apprentice of Darius. Each setback merely fueled his will, pushing him to return stronger each time. Beyond Alan, 2 further remained out unexpectedly within the arena. Lilith and Cynthia clashed fiercely, their weapons meeting with equal intensity, revealing how far they'd come. Their rapid growth had surpassed all expectations, defying what anyone imagined when they first appeared. Lilith and Cynthia clashed with raw intensity, practice without protection, as if each strike could finish it all. Their duels were fought with actual weapons, sudden and fast, never pulling back despite the risk. Such unforgiving battle drove them far beyond their bounds, sharpening their skills through each risk taken. Exhausted and wounded, both girls fallen, barely able to remain conscious following the fierce exchange. Their mutual respect was plain, each recognizing the other's firm power. Cynthia swore to grow even stronger, her gaze held with will. The girl longed to remain by Weiss's nearby, not as a follower, but as someone who could stand as his equal. Lilith rang her feelings, resolved to grow for Weiss's sake and guard what mattered most. Their shared objective was plain, become firm enough to be relied upon in the toughest instance. Despite their modesty, both girls quietly recognized each other's power, with smiles hiding deeper drive. They secretly plotted to separate Carta from Weiss, resolved to claim a spot at his nearby. Far aside, Carta suddenly felt an unknown chill, unaware of the subtle rivalry forming about her. Duke Billion took charge, suggesting a title of rock, paper, scissors to decide exam partners by chance. With excitement rising, the students agreed, accepting the rule that losers would pair with men. As the next group trained for teleportation, the exam's first exchange started with uncertainty and pressure. Weiss and Carta devised a daring plan: target the top-ranked upperclassmen and claim their points. With spirits high, they soared across the mountains. Each pupil had been scattered to predetermined locations to begin the exam. The joint 3-year evaluation commenced, drawing resolved faces from each class. The tag survival test formally started, marking the onset of a severe and chaotic challenge. Far aside, one pirate lady relaxed in ignorance, forgetting a task the girl was meant to do. The lady suddenly recalled her objective: she had planned to obtain a teaching license at Noble's school. Living trial commenced, drawing all participants into a competitive forest battlefield. A pupil was hit by a surge of sorcery, his form jolting uncontrollably from the burst. People turned in alarm, confused by the abrupt outburst. No one had awaited such intensity by the onset. Above, birds scattered as screams rang across the breath, marking the severity of the clash. In the aftermath, instructors verified 2 students disabled. The beaten students vanished in a flash, forcibly removed from the trial grounds and returned to the school. Close. Upper-year students mocked the ease of their trap, belittling the first years as hopelessly naive. Despite the ridicule, one pupil cautioned against assuming all newcomers were minor. Hinting at someone exceptional among them, they dismissed the message, convinced that any promising first years had already been removed. Instance afterward, they recalled a title Weiss Fansent, a person they would quickly remorse, underestimating. Without message, Weiss launched a devastating blow, sending 2 rivals crashing to the floor in a moment. One pupil was immediately declared unfit to persist as flames spiraled wildly across the battlefield. Weiss descended from above, catching everyone away. Defense with his abrupt aerial ambush used effortlessly and without chant, radiated immense mystic power, a mark of elite capability. Using an enchanted platform, he propelled ahead, maintaining unceasing weight with unshakable pace. A powerful magic was unleashed with fury, planned directly at Weiss, who swiftly prepared for impact. Just in time, the boy launched himself skyward, dodging the blaze as the floor cracked under to his rival's amazement. Weiss dark midair, altering trajectory with impossible accuracy. He constant the maneuver, diving with speed and power, blade ready to blow. The clash finished with his opponent overcome, as Weiss hit with composure, attention beyond a mystic shield. Though flight sorcery eluded him, Weiss developed a unique technique that changed his approach entirely. By fusing grim light and neutral elements, the boy created a mystic construct he named the Unnatural Wall. This transparent platform could appear mid-air, giving him moment footing when had to. While it overcame more mana with altitude and lasted briefly, it was perfect for sudden motion. Gratitude to this, his battle plan evolved dramatically, making evasion and surprise attacks reconsider nature. Weiss remained composure beyond a shimmering shield. His rival's blade halted during swing by the sorcery guard. Bewilderment grew across the aggressor's features as a fireball arrived, catching him completely away. Defense. Explosion hit strongly, throwing the fighter back with power and ending the duel in seconds. The downed pupil was declared incapable to persist. A teammate apologized from above, arriving too late. A flying sorcery expert stated her misfire. Weiss had mourned her signal of incoming risk. Weiss reassured his teammate, brushing away the earlier misfire. The girl returned the compliment, curious about his shield. While pleased by his skills, the girl noted the inefficiency of his high-powered spells. They couldn't be treated repeatedly. A new challenger neared, smugly identifying Weiss and mocking his before success. The boy powered up explosively, shedding his glasses using a dramatic burst of power. With dark delight, he declared his power multiplied by Senden EC without them ready for duel. Weiss knelt as he unleashed a magic-announced dark heel, catching the opponent completely away. Defense. His opponent's power started to wither rapidly, drained by the unlikely technique. Panicked and confused, the upperclassman understood to end. The action wasn't in his intel. With a swift blow, Weiss overcome him, earning another success as the beaten pupil fallen. Carrying up his score token, Weiss grinned at Carta, ready to rack up even further points. Carta stared in amazement as her point total skyrocketed, the result of their recent victories. The girl and Alan quickly encountered 2 upperclassmen approaching across the open field. An easy challenge was issued. Cynthia and Lilith stepped ahead, ready to clash. Miphis falls in a fierce fight, incapable to withstand the weight of his rival's attack. In the forest clearing, Weiss observes the subtle, noting that upperclassmen have stopped appearing altogether. A sorcery bird circles overhead, repeatedly announcing the beaten message people aside. Realizing he has been signaled as a risky power, Weiss grins as he readies to chase the rest down. With concentrated gaze, his partner accepts they'll target the reconsider and third years. Next, Weiss chose to team up with Carta for more than simple convenience. Her control of flight sorcery, something most higher mages fight with, provided a plain advantage. Beyond that, her sudden detection ability allowed them to sense concealed enemies even through dense cover. The girl pinpointed the figure of a well-concealed third year, her instincts cutting through mystic disguises. Using both abilities, Weiss launched out of the heavens, ready for a surprise assault. From above the forest canopy, Weiss trained a blow, blending in with the flying sorcery birds. Unaware rivals never felt his approach. His attacks from the blind spot hit with crushing power. Their teacher's lessons on taking initiative rang, and with 20 minutes remaining, time became crucial. Despite earning enough points, Weiss drove for further, urging Carta to locate higher-ranked targets. Driven by drive, he fixated on the rewards. Tied-to-the-point methods concealed privileges. Privileges by the school are ranked with C rank offering private rooms and S rank allowing early graduation. As students' growth, merely a few remain, most fail to meet the ordering standards. No one within the Academy's long record has ever reached the elusive S rank. Carta suspects Weiss is targeting upperclassmen to break that record and reach the top. However, Weiss denies it, revealing his further modest objective, attaining B rank instead. Weiss admitted that while B rank was his brief-term aim, S rank remained his real aspiration. However, his obsession wasn't with prestige. It was alongside the deal of unlimited premium fruit via space service. That craving traced back a year during his exhausting practice days. In those instants, dessert had been his merely comfort amid the strictness. Yet even that delight faded as practice intensified, dulling his senses along with his palate. Weiss fixated on one prize, the super premium fruit known as the mellow melon. Tasting it again after so long rose a delight he'd idea lost during practice. To reclaim that flavor, the boy resolved to earn enough points by defeating upperclassmen within the exam. With pleading gaze, he asked Carta to aid him until the very finish. Though surprised, she eventually realized his severe motivation. It was all for meals. Carta silently revealed her household secret: they grew mellow melons on their farm. Abrupt idea made her blush if she told Weiss. Would the boy visit her home? Before she could decide, a towering explosion of mystic power erupted within the distance. Even Weiss, usually composed, felt the immense threat. Future instincts verified it. What remained beyond that smoke was no pupil, but a monster. As Carta warned him to flee, Weiss spotted an odd mystic device floating in the heavens. Suddenly, he failed from above with power, startling her as he hit. Instead of retreating, he dashed toward the source of risk with a smile, hungry for the challenge. There, under the trees, sat a composed girl who casually recognized him by title. She was Eva Everell, a reconsider-year pupil and a formidable new rival. Weiss bravely challenged Evie Averill to a match, introducing himself with civil intensity. Evie accepted with a graceful grin, entertained by the rising star's courage. She was no ordinary pupil. Eva was known as the toughest in the school. Legends announced her a smashed character, a last boss, and even a sanctioned cheater. With strength unmatched, the girl had grown bored of school until currently. Weiss had her notice. Eva, the unbeatable character of legend, was set to leave the school formally. The exam finished. With 10 minutes remaining, Weiss resolved to feature her now or never, resolved to finish the arc on his terms. He launched ahead with full power, weapons raised, shouting with everything he had. Elsewhere, the battlefield remained chaotic. Cheryl fallen while allies rushed in. Only Alan remained standing, cornered and outnumbered as the weight mounted. Two girls stepped ahead, ready to challenge Alan. They trusted defeating him would earn Weiss's approval. Cornered and still, Alan's power rose. His form shook, gaze burning with intensity as a powerful power erupted from him. The battlefield lay scorched as the exam concluded. Both fighters remained at the edge of fatigue, the floor shattered under them. Eva Everell remained composure, her power undeniable, radiating superiority without one wound. Despite using each magic dark heal, dark eye, and absolute barrier, the boy couldn't pierce her defenses. No tactic, no sorcery, no work had any effect. The girl remained untouched. Beaten yet inspired, he chose to stay, his will reignited by her immense strength. Eva expressed interest in him, her demeanor calm yet captivating. Supported by her remarks, he chose to remain at the school, leaving thoughts of leaving. With the exam over, students started returning to the Noblesse Magic Academy. Their trials complete, transportation spells invoked, and the battlefield swiftly emptied in a flash of light. In the aftermath, Eva stayed beyond, and Carta's destiny shifted. Her expulsion avoided, the scenario altered formally more. Whispers held the field as Eva neared, drawing notice with each move. Then Cynthia and Lilith arrived, battered, their loss stunning everyone who witnessed it. Bruised and regretful, Cynthia whispered an apology, her call held with regret. Courage had clouded her assessment, and now the weight of defeat was plain in her gaze. As they walked together, the girl blamed herself for dragging Lilith into a battle they couldn't prevail. Both girls blamed themselves for the loss, each convinced they had failed the other. Elsewhere, a pupil silently admitted his desire to prove himself. His real motivation emerged: he had long wanted to challenge Alan and exceed him. Across the field, Alan remained calmly, his look relaxed despite fresh injuries. Their gaze met, a still pressure flared, hinting at a coming confrontation. Neither could dismiss Alan, and his rival remained nearby as the tag team exam formally finished. The students returned to campus, slipping back into the recognizable rhythm of school existence. Following his victory, the boy hired to B rank and embraced a more comfortable lifestyle. Regimens settled in, Yet the thrill of success faded as lower-ranked matches lost their appeal. Then came a surprise: a new teacher appeared, poised to lose everything up. The class grew strained as an offhand comment stirred unease. Observers observed silently, while one pupil's look started to shift. Overcome by emotion, his vision blurred and darkened. A yet fury started rising within him, uncontrollable and severe. The arrival of Milk Avita sent a chill through the space, her stern eyes paralyzing one pupil with terror. At the front, she assuredly declared herself the new teacher in charge of battle practice. One pupil shot his palm up as the girl calmly asked if there were any questions. Before the boy could talk, Duke Billion stepped in, voicing the doubt on everyone's mind. From beyond, the uneasy pupil grinned in comfort, quietly thankful for Duke's timely intervention. Multiple students voiced their anger, ordering to know why Milk Avitas had shown up in their classroom. The girl dismissed their concerns sternly, brushing away their questions as meaningless. Disorder stirred among the students, and one broke down in bewilderment, incapable to comprehend her behavior. Instructor Chloe calmly arrived, revealing the shortage of teachers as the cause for Milk's appearance. She stated that rising requests for battle practice had overcome the academy's present servants. Weiss realized the upperclassmen's dignity was fueling their intensity. Milk introduced herself again, but doubts lingered as someone quietly regretted her appointment. From the shadows, Milk felt the unspoken criticism, confronting Weiss with disturbing accuracy. Taken away defense, he stammered an excuse, shocked by her awareness of his thoughts, without pause. She announced punishment push-ups as the practice session eventually started under her rule. Practice continued under the severe sun, where Milk recognized Weiss's growth with a veiled remark. Doubt crept into Weiss's thoughts as he asked whether her figure was purely to abuse him. Closed students took spot of Weiss's uncharacteristic obedience, unaware of the weight looming over him. Milk's sudden call stung through the field, scolding people for their sluggish standard. With a mocking grin, the girl concluded the school was overrun with pampered children. Issued a merciless order the students were to climb the mountain until sunset without rest. To make matters further, the girl singled out Weiss to perform push-ups during the climb. Her arrival transformed regular practice into a ruthless trial. No one could escape. Each practice day brought fear. The entire class lived in terror of her next command. Eventually, even a pool of water felt like a miracle to the exhausted trainees. The boys remained about the pool, confused and wary of what Milk had planned next. Their bewilderment grew as she suddenly arrived, calling for their notice with a commanding call. To their surprise, a group of girls appeared in swimsuits. Practice was to be done in water. What followed was disorder, perspiration, and panic as the boys clumsily responded, while Milk observed unimpressed.